Is there a performance gap? And if it is, what does it mean? We keep hearing about this. Many of you know our company, know my family's name for a lot of years, and we have access to a lot of information that generally is not made public. We have about 2,500 municipal clients of ours and a growing number of investor-owns too. So what we decided to do is take a basket of municipal water and sewer companies and take a look and match them up with investor-owned. And it's quite interesting. We can't really zoom in on this, but investor-owns, if you take a look at some of the larger ones, American Water Works has been traded on the New York Stock Exchange for 100 years. I know that Andrew just had said that he said that there's really no buyers for water and sewer. I would absolutely disagree with that. Just last week, American Water Works paid $711 million for a privately held water and sewer agency. So yeah, there are a very interesting number of buyers. And as you take a look at the publicly traded, you can always go up to the SEC database called EDGAR. I'm not sure why it's called EDGAR. It probably stands for something meaningful. And take a look at items. You know, when you take a look at efficiencies, the number one thing in business that you look at is return on asset. So if you take a look at the matchup, investor-owned utilities make about 3.3%, almost like a grocery store. What do the municipal-owned operators bring in? About 2.4%. In financial terms, that's a 90 basis point difference. That's fairly significant. So why do they have a higher return on asset if we truly have a equal or equalized balance of asset between these, balance of revenues? Well, Andy had one equation. I'll have one equation as well in here and refer to it. Maybe the revenue's higher. Maybe it's the fact that if you're in a district where you get water from an investor-owned, maybe you drink more water. Maybe that's the thing, and so you drive more revenue, or maybe you're billed for it more, or you have to pay higher permitting fees or building fees or tapping fees. Could be that their assets are a little bit lower. Maybe they're older, and so all their assets are depreciated. That's another influence on that equation. Maybe their expenses are lower. Now, this would be very troubling if it actually was true, because in every case, investor-owned utilities go ahead and pay federal taxes, and the states don't. So you would think that there was a built-in competitive advantage to being a municipal-owned water or sewer agency. Well, how about capital investment? Maybe these guys just don't invest any money. And we've talked a lot about capital investment in here. And if we take a look at the capital invested each year as a percentage of their total assets, investor-owns as a group, generally 8%. They basically rebuy 8% of their total assets each year. Municipals, 5%. It's interesting, we've heard about Bedford, Texas, and this is a really good shot in the arm for the folks in Bedford. And I understand that it's about $70 million over the next 5 years. That's about $14 million. And I know when I asked JC yesterday, what was the value of the assets, he said that the street assets were around $225 million. In that comparison, in that number that we've just seen, that would mean that Bedford is investing 6% for that asset. Now, that's a street. We're looking at water. But again, do you have a feel, and is there a gap in the assets that you're looking at? Well, what about capital investment to depreciation? We've already looked at a couple of curves. Everybody has that curve. Well, that curve, as the assets decline, is depreciation. And we find that the capital invested by investor-owns is 3 times their depreciation. So whatever is declining, they invest 3 times that amount. Municipals, 2 times. This is a little bit difficult to read, but this is a financial statement. Richard asked before, go to your financial director and get a financial statement. This happens to be the balance sheet for a very large Midwestern water utility. And in fact, by very large, if you take a look at the very bottom, there's about $340 million in assets for this particular water utility. And it's kind of interesting. You take a look at inventories, the spare parts, and that's about, they spend about $2.3 million, and that's the balance that they show in that. But notice, look where they have their assets. At the very bottom. They usually list cash and accounts receivable and inventory, the spare parts, right up there in the chart. How do you think investor-owns portray their assets? Totally different. Every one of the publicly traded water and sewer companies today, first item that they list is their most important item, and that is their assets, total assets. Here we look at San Jose Water, and they're about $323 million in assets as well. First thing, most important thing. How much do you think that they have in their spare parts inventory? 1/4 the size of the other one. So by looking at these things, and again, do we have buyers for water and sewer? You bet we do.